Israel's war to root out Hamas terrorists in Gaza presses on. There has also been a rise in violence between Israeli settlers and Palestinians in the West Bank. The United Nations says there has been an average of 7 attacks by Jewish settlers on West Bank Palestinians each day since the October 7th Hamas terrorist attack. New York Times columnist Nick Kristof just returned from the West Bank, where he reunited with 2 Palestinian men that he first met there back in 1982. How their lives and the region have changed in the decades since is the subject of his latest column for the paper entitled Losing Hope in the West Bank.
You know, Nick, Mika and I were so moved by your column.
Incredible.
And as I read the opening of it and started it, and you were talking about these 2 students that you met in 1982 while you were a law student traveling on a local bus in the West Bank. You said, and then I looked through my old address book, and I was like, come on, he's not going to meet back up with them. But you actually did, and you talk about the extraordinarily life that you've lived over those 40 years, but you also talked about their life of despair. Take us through the process of you meeting up with your 2 old friends.
Sure. So in 1982, when I met Salah and Mahmoud, we were all students. We were all full of ambition for graduate study, to travel the world, to have fulfilling careers. And then, I thought I would stay in touch or maybe send a thank you note. So I wrote down their names and addresses. Never did. We had a great day together, but I had no idea what had happened to them. And I've had this great career. I was able to look them up and find them, partly because if you're a Palestinian refugee in a refugee camp, you're not very mobile, and so they're still in that same refugee camp. They were, for that reason, quite easy to track down. And they had, Salah had wanted to do a PhD in Egypt, in Arabic studies. Mahmoud had wanted to earn a master's in Spanish in Spain. But they've been unable to leave the West Bank to get that education. And when I first met them, they were able to drive to Tel Aviv to go to the beach for the day. They could travel anywhere. Now Mahmoud can't even go to his doctor in Jericho because of all the checkpoints, the barriers. And these guys, they're not political. They've not been in trouble. They've just tried to keep their head down. But they are just seething with frustration. At one point, they were fired from their jobs as high school teachers for somewhat unclear reasons. Mahmoud had violated a curfew and been jailed for 18 days, and Salah had the soldiers thought he hadn't been aggressive enough in stopping students from throwing rocks. But they were just, all these dreams had been replaced by just frustration.
And Nick, they really were victims of political meltdown. I mean, of course, the Israelis saw the bus bombings that were happening throughout the 80s, and so they cracked down on security measures. The United States certainly would have in many cases.
Yep.
But these 2 guys that you knew who, like you said, could go to the beach in Israel, could go to Tel Aviv, visit for the day, most importantly, go across Israel and work, suddenly were locked down. I want to read a part that was jarring. You said, it was wonderful to see them again, but our reunion also is a window into Palestinian frustrations. The world has changed so much in 4 decades, but while I've traveled the world and had a fulfilling career, they remain stateless, stuck in a refugee camp and fearful of Israeli settlers and soldiers. Worse, they have much less freedom today than when I first met them in 1982. How sad.
And, it also had political consequences. They have a much more hostile view toward Israel now than they used to. They were completely convinced that the bombing the explosion at the Al-Aqli hospital in Gaza was, which I think was probably caused by an errant Palestinian rocket. They are convinced not only that it was an Israeli shell, but that it was a deliberate attack on that hospital. They regretted the killing of civilians by Hamas in Israel, but they were pretty full of their own pain and their former students who'd been killed. And they didn't have a lot of extra bandwidth for Israeli pain, just as Israelis haven't had bandwidth for Palestinian pain.